Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Unconventional Medicine podcast. I am your host, Dr. Kate Davis. I am a licensed chiropractor and currently practicing functional medicine, healing chronic gut issues, primarily in women. And I just want to welcome you to the show. If you're new to the show, basically this whole entire series is about anything and everything health and wellness, how to get to the root cause, whether you're dealing with gut issues, hormone dysfunction, neurological dysfunction from a head injury, all sorts of things, you name it, we're going to talk about it all. So if you're someone who just loves nerding out in the health and wellness space, in the alternative medicine, natural health, functional medicine world, you're going to love this podcast. So I'm so excited to have you here. Thanks so much for listening. And if you like the episode, please do me a favor, subscribe to it if you're on YouTube, and leave a review if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I love reviews, love reading them, love hearing y'all's input. So we're going to get started today. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about why food quality matters more than any specific diet. And so I know there's just a plethora of overwhelming information out there about diet and food and what's the right diet for me. Is it paleo? Is it carnivore? Is it vegetarian? You name it. I feel like there is a nutrition protocol for everything. And, there's always people out there saying, this is the one diet that fixes XYZ issue. This is the one diet that fixes your gut. This is the one diet that heals your hormones. And in reality, you guys, everyone is individual. Everyone is unique. Everyone has a very specific body type. And we've got, trillions of reactions going on in our body at any one time. And, even the minor differences in our DNA can really create just a vast difference in how our internal physiology functions from person to person. So I'm going to be talking about that today, about how it's really not important what diet you're on, whether it's paleo, carnivore, vegetarian, you name it. It's really more about the quality of your food and what to look out for, what to check for when you go to the grocery stores to make sure you're not putting it in your body, because this stuff really does compound and lead to significant health issues over, decades. And I've seen that in almost every single one of the patients I work with. I work with chronic gut issues. So obviously this is a lot more prevalent in my field versus maybe someone else. But basically, I'm going to be talking to you guys about, pesticides, food additives, seed oils. Are they good or bad? Natural flavors, what to look out for. Are they good for you? Are they bad for you? How to kind of prioritize what is better, because I realize that not everyone may have access to, whole organic foods in their areas, especially if you live up north and you have winter. There's no, seasonal crops that you can really get a hold of unless you're on one of those subscription, boxes that ships you produce from another state or another part of the country. But it is really important to, yes, I'm going to give you guys my opinion on everything food, what to look out for, what I avoid personally, especially with my patients with gut health issues. But I also want you guys to know that just because you're not doing everything 100%, which is pretty much impossible for most people, it doesn't mean you're failing, doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. So I want you to just approach this podcast episode with just the idea of, I'm just going to start somewhere and I'm going to keep improving in this area. But I don't want you guys to think, oh, I've got to be perfect. I have to get everything right. I can't have any seed oils in my diet, or these horrible chronic illnesses are going to happen, because that's just not true, you guys. One thing I really have to harp on with the people I work with, because a lot of them are very type A, perfectionist. I used to be that as well, so I totally get that. But it's all about progress, not perfection. So you don't beat yourself up if you're listening to this and you're saying to yourself, wow, Dr. Davis, I eat a lot of those foods. It's okay. Start somewhere. And so I just want to preface the episode with that, just so you guys aren't beating yourselves up, because I feel like in the natural medicine world, there is a lot, especially on Instagram, because it is a short form platform. There's always people almost kind of scaring you with food and saying, avoid this, it'll give you cancer, blah, blah, blah. And it's true, over a long period of time, it does have the potential to do that. But I don't want you to think that you have to change everything overnight in order to improve your health and get things back on track. So just want to start there, but we're going to kind of dive in, because this is a really, really important topic and a question I get asked so much by so many people. What is the best diet? Now, from a functional medicine perspective, everything I've studied, as long as you are close to a whole food diet, you're doing well. I personally don't like the vegan diet. I feel like it misses a ton of nutrients. Yes, there are nutrients in vegetables and fruits, but if you don't even have eggs in your diet, or dairy, or some form of animal protein, you're going to be missing out on a lot of essential nutrients. So that's the only kind of caveat to anything I'm going to talk about right now. And if you guys have any questions on that, please feel free to leave a comment below if you're on YouTube, or you can send me an email. You can find all that stuff in the show notes. I'm happy to, create more extensive videos kind of going through y'all's questions as well. Because I love that. I want you guys to get all your questions answered and, feel like this is a place where you can really just learn anything that's kind of been on your mind. So, because I love nerding out about this stuff. I'll research it for you. I'll look it up. But anyways, so let's just start there. Whole foods diet. Now, what that means is if the food is the only ingredient, that is whole foods. Apple, beef, chicken, fish, broccoli, carrots. Like, as long as you guys can stick to that as closely as possible. And I always tell people, if you're healthy, if you don't really have any severe health issues going on, you can stick to kind of an 80-20 rule. I prefer 90-10 for myself. And that 10% usually falls around Christmas and Thanksgiving. So I try to be really good the rest of the year so I can kind of enjoy those holidays and kind of get back on track after that. But I always tell people, do the best you can. I know that it's really hard for some people to be able to afford some of the quality of meat that I'm about to go over with you guys. And so you just have to kind of do the best you can. So I'm going to give you guys ranges of this is the best, but if you can't afford this, look for this. And if you can't afford that, look for this. And so that's kind of my whole goal on here is, yes, I have, if you've ever looked at my Instagram, you know that I talk a lot about food quality. I have a Trash or Treasure series. You guys, it's a 1-minute video. Of course, I'm going to be very black or white in that episode, but just know that this is stuff I teach my patients of if you can't afford 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef, here's what to look for instead. And so there are, levels of healthy food. And so I'm just going to kind of run through that with you guys. So just know you do not have to be perfect. Just start somewhere. So first of all, let's talk about the importance of getting organic produce. I want to talk about pesticides because these are so detrimental to your health. Glyphosate, aka Roundup. I'm sure you guys have heard this one all the time. There's so many people fighting about it on social media, but this stuff is toxic, you guys. Like if you look at research, it has been shown in research in children to lead to neurodevelopmental issues like ADHD, learning disabilities, cognitive impairments, all sorts of stuff, especially if they're playing in parks that are sprayed with this stuff or the grass is sprayed, if they're eating non-organic fruits and vegetables. So there really is a huge benefit to eating organic when it comes to produce. And the reason for that is because a lot of times, even if you wash off your fruits and veggies, and one of the best things you can do if you're someone who's like, hey, I don't really have access to organic produce in my area, is if you wash the food in a baking soda water solution. So you just add 1 to 2 tablespoons of baking soda to about 16 ounces of water, wash your produce and your fruit in that. That will remove about I believe the study showed about at least 95%, maybe up to 99% of the pesticides that are on the outside of the fruit or vegetable, which is good because you're getting rid of most of what is sprayed on those fruits and vegetables. So if you're someone who's like, hey, I just can't afford it, or maybe you just don't have access to it because of where you're at in the country or in the world, then that's number one is just get baking soda water solution. This has been shown in research to remove almost all pesticide residue. Now, the problem though, and the reason why I always recommend people look at the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen list every single year. There's a new one that comes out every year, shows you the most heavily tainted with pesticides, which usually ends up being berries, especially strawberries. They're almost always on the Dirty Dozen every single year. Those are the ones that I want you guys to prioritize organic. Now, if it's not on the Dirty Dozen, do your best. If you can find organic, great. If not, that's okay. Just wash it in that baking soda water solution. Make sure too that you're not using tap water because tap water is pretty gross in most of the country, unfortunately. Try to get some filtered water. If you have reverse osmosis water, that is the best. If not, even a Brita filter is going to get out a lot of the contaminants. It's still better than nothing. So filter your water, y'all. It's really important. Don't wash your fruits and veggies in tap water. There's so many contaminants in it. And if you want to see what's in the water in your area, go to ewg.org/tap water. Type in your zip code. It'll show you all the contaminants in the water. It'll shock you. So again, not to be afraid, just to be aware. Go ahead and check that out. But organic produce and veggies, it is really, really important because you guys, these pesticides, especially glyphosate, has been shown in research to not only for, the kids with neurodevelopmental disorders, but it's also been shown to create what's called leaky gut. And for those of y'all who don't know what that is, that's basically where your gut lining becomes so inflamed that now, instead of just small micronutrients from your food being able to slip into your bloodstream and go to the body where they're needed, now all of a sudden we get waste products and infections and toxins that are in your gut able to slip into your bloodstream, and that can cause widespread systemic inflammation. Leaky gut was proven to be the precursor to all autoimmune disease. It releases, when that gut lining breaks down, you release a protein called zonulin. that is found in extremely high amounts in people with autoimmune disease. And so that has been shown to be the precursor to autoimmunity. So especially, if you live in an area where autoimmunity is really high, especially if you're near farmland, we want to try to reduce as much exposure to those pesticides as humanly possible because they really do wreak havoc on the body. And so glyphosate is probably the biggest one. It's sprayed multiple times on our crops. It's horrible the way that they use it. And the biggest crops they spray it on are wheat, corn, and soy. So I always, to the best of my abilities, I tell people just avoid those foods. I know it's almost impossible. All processed food has some form of corn or wheat in it. Even if it doesn't say it on the label, it's probably hidden in there. So what you can do is, I always recommend if you want to eat some sort of bread, always go with an organic sourdough. So that's number one. Always try to get organic because that means it's not sprayed with pesticides. As far as corn, I know it's tough, guys, but just do the best you can. Cornstarch is pretty much in everything. So if you love to bake, try to learn some recipes where you can just make it from scratch at home. And again, do the best you can. If you're like, hey, I really can't remove this from my diet, then listen to all the other things I'm going to talk about. Try to change one of those. Start somewhere, but really, really important because these pesticides are known to cause leaky gut, which can lead to autoimmunity and all sorts of other issues in people. Even weakening of collagen in your joints has been linked to a lot of glyphosate exposure. Again, there's no direct correlation or direct cause, but it is a very, very highly suspected contributor to ACL tears, MCL tears. So just something to be aware of, you guys, is when you can buy organic, always buy organic. Now, if you're someone who's like, hey, I can't afford to go to Whole Foods or, to buy organic produce from these, health stores around me. If you guys don't know this already, Walmart is the biggest distributor of organic produce in the country. I didn't know that until my friend told me about a year ago, but Walmart is affordable. They have a lot of organic produce there, so I would start there. If you're someone who's like, hey, I can afford a farmer's market, great. Go to Walmart, get your organic produce there. That'll be a good place to start. All right. Another pesticide too is called atrazine. That one really affects hormones, especially in men. So again, filter your water, you guys. Try to get organic produce when possible. Try to limit processed foods as much as humanly possible, especially ultra processed. You guys, when you go to the grocery store, if you just stick to the perimeter of the store and don't go anywhere in the middle, you're going to be on a good start with your health because all of the whole food is on the sides of the store, the perimeter. They got the dairy, the butter, the veggies, fruits, meats, all on the perimeter. And then all of the ultra processed cereals and all those junk foods are all on the inside. So if you just avoid the inside of the grocery store, you're going to be on a good track to getting your health back. Another thing to be mindful of, you guys, is food additives. So there's obviously a lot we could go over. I just want to give you guys a brief view of this is why you don't eat ultra processed foods, because there are so many chemicals in our food, especially in breakfast cereal, big one, that are known to cause cancer, are known to wreck hormones, are known to destroy your gut and cause inflammation in that gut lining. Guys, 80% of your immune system lives in the gut. You want to protect your gut as much as possible. It's connected to so many systems in your body, your mental health, your neurological health, so brain health, your hormones, so many different things. So if you really want to just keep yourself well, long term, you've really got to focus on protecting your gut health. And the biggest thing you can do is removing all this processed crap that we eat in America. And so I know it's hard, guys. They have food scientists who actually design this food to be incredibly addicting so that you eat more of it and that you crave it all the time. And so I know it's hard. It's almost like getting off drugs for some people because they're just so addicted to the food and all these ingredients that food scientists have put in there that it is really hard. And so I want to encourage you, if you're one of those people and you're like, man, I don't even know how I could stop eating all this stuff that I've been eating for the last 20 years, start ridiculously small. If you look at habit change research, so there's a great book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. He talks about how if you want to change a habit, you have to start with something so ridiculously small that you laugh when you think about it. So for example, if you're someone who eats Oreos every night and you eat a whole sleeve of Oreos, all I want you to start with is, can I eat a whole sleeve minus one cookie? Anyone could do that. You're probably laughing right now and thinking, oh my God, Dr. Davis, that's so easy. Give me something harder. Start small. If you want permanent, long-lasting change, this is based on decades of research, you guys, about habit formation. If you're someone especially who's struggled to change up their diet so many times, start so incredibly small that it seems silly. Over time, you're going to get those daily wins every single day until eventually you're not eating the Oreos anymore. And then you're like, oh, what's the next bad habit I can get rid of? And it just builds confidence in you to actually get to the point that you want to get to really overhaul your health and start feeling better and lose weight. And so start there, really easy, really small. But a lot of these food additives like solvents, preservatives, I mean, this stuff is so toxic, you guys. I wanted to talk about one in particular because it is found in so many foods, especially if you're someone who eats breakfast cereal. I mean, this stuff is so toxic. It's called BHT. You'll find it on most of those popular brands of breakfast cereal, but it causes liver, kidney damage, lung cell toxicity. It can potentially promote tumors at high doses. So if you're someone who eats cereal every single day or multiple times a day, you could be contributing to cancer growth formation in your body. Not to mention all the sugar that wrecks your insulin and your blood sugar and all those other side effects as well is just really going to make you more likely to have chronic disease later on in life. So we want to just limit these as much as possible. But you guys, this stuff is toxic. It messes with your hormones. It's toxic to your brain, to your blood, to your lungs. It can actually create allergic reactions like skin reactions in people and asthma symptoms in some people. And what's crazy about this stuff is you'll see when you research it, oh, it's not harmful. It's such a low dose. It's not going to make a difference. But you guys, there is a difference between a single low exposure one time and low chronic exposure daily for decades. And they've never measured the second one. And so when they tell you, oh, there's a safe amount of BHT in this cereal, you don't have to worry about it, they've only tested it as a one dose test. They haven't tested long-term what happens when someone consumes this stuff on a daily basis for 30 years. And I know they're doing more studies on it now because it is becoming more of an issue and a lot of people are speaking out about it, but we don't have the results yet. And so all these animal studies, though, have shown significant liver damage, kidney damage, lung damage, potential tumors, blood toxicity, all this stuff that's just so bad. And so I just want you guys to try to avoid this stuff as much as possible. So start reading ingredient labels. When you read a label, the first ingredients listed are always the ones that are in the highest amounts. As it gets further down the label, those are in much lower amounts. So when you're looking for, these ingredients, you might only see them at the end of the label and think to yourself, oh, it's just a tiny amount. How could it really hurt? But you guys, again, if you're consuming this stuff on a daily basis, it's really going to mess with your health. And so just want you to be aware of that. But yeah, BHT is a synthetic preservative that's used in a lot of breakfast cereals. It extends shelf life, prevents the food from going bad. And it's found in pretty much all the popular cereal brands that you would imagine. So definitely stay away from this stuff. It's extremely toxic. And now I want to talk about natural flavors because this is a big one that people might not realize. And I know that there's drinks out there that mimic soda, like Olipop, Zevia, Poppy, all those new probiotic, prebiotic drinks. And they are amazing. The only thing I don't like is that they have natural flavors. And so a lot of times people look at a label and they'll be like, oh, natural. You guys, this is just marketing. Even if it says organic natural flavors, a lot of it is still synthetic. And so natural flavors, I don't know if you guys know this, but if they just list natural flavors on the back of a can of something, this is usually found in drinks typically, it can have over 100 different chemical ingredients. That can include solvents, preservatives, emulsifiers, which are thickening agents. And all this stuff can just end up being extremely toxic to your body. And so it's crazy because they won't even have any sort of transparency on what chemicals make up that natural flavor because it's considered a trade secret. So I've talked to so many companies, even the organic ones, and oh, we have natural products. And I'll ask them, can you give me any sort of clarity on what is in the natural flavors in your product? None of them have ever answered my question. They're like, well, it's plant-based, derived, and they'll just give me this runaround of, all these words that sound good. And I'm like, if you can't give me transparency on what chemicals you're putting in your food, I'm not going to promote your product at all. I'm not going to recommend it to my patients. I'm not going to say, oh, this is a good brand. And that's just the unfortunate thing about the food companies. They have so many loopholes where they don't have to actually disclose a lot of this stuff to people. And it's just really sad because a lot of people are really struggling with their health and they don't realize that a lot of these natural flavors that they're, consuming on a daily basis in their foods could be, poisoning their body. Now, it's not to say that all natural flavors are bad, but again, if they don't have any transparency on how many ingredients are in there or, what exactly it is, if there is a solvent or a preservative or an emulsifier, if they can't tell me that stuff, I don't trust their product and I don't trust their company. And unfortunately, most of those companies will never disclose to you, oh, it's a trade secret. We can't tell you what's in it. Which is just ridiculous because people are looking for healthy alternatives, and a lot of these companies out there are really just kind of pulling the wool over your eyes and just making you think that the food is actually healthy for you, but then they throw this stuff in there like, "Oh, 0 sugar." You're like, "Oh, great." And then you look at the ingredients and it's natural flavors. And that's the same with, I know Olipop, Zevia, Poppy, they're all like that. Now, I will say this because I want you guys to also know they are much better alternatives to drinking soda and energy drinks. So if you have to choose between them, if you're like, "Hey, I just can't imagine going a day without drinking soda," just switch to Zevia, switch to Olipop, switch to Poppy, whichever one you like. There's so many of those soda brands that mimic soda out there that use stevia as a sweetener. So what I really like about them is that they don't raise blood sugar and insulin. So if you're someone who's pre-diabetic or diabetic, they are a good alternative to soda to where you're not going to further the disease state that you're already in. So in that sense, I would always choose Olipop or Zevia or Poppy or one of those, fake soda drinks over, a Coca-Cola or Pepsi any day, because those ones actually do have a lot of those chemicals in them, those preservatives that are just not good for you. They have, food dyes and all that stuff that's just not good for your health. Just something to keep in mind is that natural flavors, it doesn't mean they come from nature. It just sounds good. It's a marketing thing. And a lot of them can be made up of over 100 different chemical ingredients, which is actually kind of, crazy that that's even allowed. So I'm hoping that the FDA steps in at some point, but as of now, this is where we're at. Now, a lot of you will ask, okay, what about organic natural flavors, Dr. Davis? Which is a great question. So these ones are a little bit stricter. So I do like these ones a little more because they are derived from nature and they require the USDA organic brand. They have you go through all these things to make sure you don't have, really bad products in your food. And so they do meet the USDA organic standards, which is good. So they have to be processed without synthetic solvents or artificial preservatives. So in that case, they do tend to be a lot better than if it just says natural flavors. So just something to keep in mind. Again, if you find something that's like one of those gummy bears and the only bad ingredient you find in it is natural flavors, it's still going to be better for you than a real gummy bear that has a ton of sugar in it and all sorts of food dyes and all that stuff. Again, we want to know this stuff, but we also want to make wise decisions and just know that it's not always going to be possible to eat completely whole foods every day, especially if you're a mom and you have kids and you work full time. You're just going to have to do the best you can and just know that there are better brands, but just also always try to avoid these ingredients, especially natural flavors, when possible. But just know that if you find something that's better quality than what you were eating before, it's still going to be better for you. For example, I love the Simple Mills crackers. They sell them at Costco if you're in California. And they're just these salted crackers. And all the ingredients are good, except at the very end, you see seed oils in them, which I'm going to talk about in a second. I still think there is no other cracker out there that has better quality ingredients than Simple Mills. So yes, it does have seed oils in it, but I don't consume seed oils in any other part of my diet. So if I want a quick snack, hummus and these chips or these crackers, then I'm going to eat that. And that's okay because I know that I don't eat seed oils in any of the other food I make. I usually use coconut oil or ghee or butter to cook my food or, olive oil, avocado oil, things like that. So I'm not getting the seed oils that are in all the ultra processed foods because I don't eat that junk. And so that is something to keep in mind too, is yes, we want to limit this stuff as much as possible, but for a lot of people, it's nearly impossible to get to 100%. So don't beat yourself up if you're eating something that has natural flavors or drinking something with natural flavors. As long as it's a better alternative than what you were eating or drinking before, you're still on the right track. So I just want you guys to know that. All right, so let's talk about seed oils because I know that's another big one that people really fight on social media, which it just cracks me up. There's all these people who are just, getting really mad at each other for having differing opinions. And just go read the research, you guys. Go read it for yourselves. You have to realize, too, that there are a lot of people who are paid by these corporations to tell you that something is healthy, even when it's not. I even get a lot of companies reaching out to me, asking me to promote their products. I've never promoted a single one on my Instagram because they haven't met my standards for things that I would want to recommend to my patients. And so until the companies that I already recommend to my patients actually ask me to promote their products, those are the only ones I really stick to. But I don't promote anything that I know is bad for people because people are really looking for answers and there's so much garbage information out there and so many people who are sold out because the companies are paying them a lot of money to say this and it's just really bad. So if you look at a label and you see canola oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, rapeseed oil, there's all sorts of different names for it. Those are seed oils. And the reason why they can be really, really bad for your health is because they're very, very high in omega-6 fatty acids to the point where it's in an amount that's so high because they're extracted from seeds in this horrible industrial process. If you want to wanna go look up, how disgusting it is and how gross seed oils look when they're being industrially processed, go look up a video on YouTube. It's pretty horrifying, and it'll probably make you never eat them ever again. But they are bleached, deodorized, washed in hexane, which is a known neurotoxin, and then dyed and deodorized so they don't smell disgusting before they're put on a shelf. And so just that process alone really just destroys any health benefits that could have ever been from naturally extracted seed oil. But they're very, very high in omega-6s to the point where it's so much more than what would be found in nature if you were to just eat that seed in nature, that it really just messes up inflammation in your body, because omega-6s are very pro-inflammatory. Omega-3s are more anti-inflammatory. Now, obviously, we need omega-6s in our diet, but we want to have a good balance of omega-3s and 6s. Now, if you're on a diet that's already very high in ultra-processed foods or processed foods, or you're eating at fast food places once or twice a week, you're already getting a ton of omega-6s. And then if you add in seed oils, if you're cooking with any of those oils I just mentioned, then you're really just adding fuel to the fire in your body. And if you have a lot of joint pain, if you have autoimmune disease, if you're, you just feel puffy and inflamed all the time, just try cutting that out. I would almost guarantee you'd feel a difference. I mean, this stuff is so toxic. There's so much research around it, how it just causes widespread inflammation in the body. It can actually trigger metabolic issues like diabetes and weight gain in a lot of people. Even avocado oil is good, but you've got to be careful with the brand that you buy, because a lot of them, unfortunately, they'll mix seed oils in there and they won't put it on the label. That's happened with olive oil as well. There was a huge scandal around that, I think like 10 years ago, where they found somebody independently tested all these olive oil brands and found that most of them contained a significant amount of seed oils in them, and they weren't putting it on the label because they were just trying to cut costs and save money. And so it was a huge thing. The same thing is happening to avocado oil. So honestly, I would stick to coconut oil, butter, ghee, as long as you can handle dairy. If you're kind of sensitive to dairy, ghee seems to be a little bit better for people who have dairy sensitivity. Seed oils, I would just stay away from them. They're bad news. They cause massive inflammation in the body, and they're cheaper, so they put them in food, and it's really sad because, they really do wreak a lot of havoc on people's bodies, especially just from that industrialized process where they're just soaking the stuff in so many chemicals that by the time it gets on the shelf, it's not even, recognizable anymore. And so go check that out if you want to see, what it looks like when it goes through that process, but I would avoid them as much as possible. All right. If you're someone who's like, hey, I've never read a label in my entire life, and I would love to, see what kind of foods Dr. Davis promotes and, supports, go to my Instagram. It's at Dr. Kate Davis. So DrKateDavis. Look at my Trash or Treasure series on Instagram. It's one of the highlight reels right below my profile. It says trash/treasure. But I basically go to all these stores like Ralph's, Costco, Trader Joe's, although we got kicked out of Trader Joe's. They don't like people filming in there. And we go through a lot of the products in the stores. And basically I'm telling you if I think it's trash and you should never eat it, or if I think it's treasure and it's got good ingredients, good quality stuff. So I go through a lot of different foods, like what kind of milk to buy, chips, energy bars, all that stuff. And so if you're someone who's like, okay, I want to start cleaning up my diet, but I don't really know where to start, just go check out that series on Instagram. I've got probably at least like 30 or 40 episodes on there. And I cover the biggest food items that people ask me to cover. So you'll probably find something in there that you eat and you're just like, oh, good, I can go with that brand. Awesome. So that would be a good place to start. And then again, as you're going through this, yes, we want to avoid natural flavors. We want to avoid seed oils and food additives and pesticides and try to get organic produce and all that stuff. But just know, prioritize what's better. For example, I realized I haven't talked about meat yet. When you're going to a grocery store, I always tell people for beef, because the beef industry and the chicken industry are just so disgusting and corrupt, where these animals are literally kept in kennels or stalls all day, never move, never go outside, and just fed all this food. That's conventional beef, conventional chicken. You want to avoid that stuff as much as possible. I always tell people, if you're buying beef, you want to look for two things. Does it say 100% grass-fed, or does it say grass-finished? Another thing you can look for is regenerative farming. That's also another good label. But if it doesn't have any of those on there, I wouldn't buy it. And the reason for that is grass-fed has become this new label where they can literally feed a cow grass, again, in a stall where it doesn't go outside. It just sits there its whole life, just eating and never moves because they're trying to, capitalize on profit, which is really sad. And there's a lot of documentaries out there about it. That's why a lot of people go vegetarian, but just know there are farms you can support that do regenerative farming where the cows are outside. They're actually eating grass. They're not being force-fed corn and soy, which are very heavily sprayed with the glyphosate that we talked about earlier, the Roundup, just the horrible conditions. The meat is just not clean. And I can't imagine that if a cow has a horrible life like that, that the meat is going to turn out very well and it's not going to be extremely inflamed and has all these horrible toxins in it. And so what you want to look for is that. However, if you're like, hey, I just can't afford grass finished, that's okay. Look for grass fed. But what that means is the grass fed, they can actually feed them corn and soy the last 3 months of their life to fatten them up, because that stuff will make them gain a lot of weight and get that marbling in the meat. And then they'll still label it as grass fed. So it is manipulative. It is really leading people to spend more money on something that's better than conventional beef, but not a huge leap forward. It's still a lot better than if you were to just buy any beef from store, but you really want to look for at least grass fed. So if you're like, hey, I can't afford like regenerative or grass finished or 100% grass fed, that's great. Look for something that says grass fed. So at least it was fed 70% of its life. It was fed grass, which is what cows are supposed to eat. They're not supposed to eat corn and soy. They're supposed to eat grass. And so that's what I would look for. In terms of chicken, you want to look for air chilled, because otherwise they'll dunk it in chlorine, because again, the conditions in those chicken factories are so disgusting that so many of the chickens have infections that they have to literally dunk the meat in chlorine to get rid of the bacteria on it before they sell it. So if it says water chilled or something like that, do not buy it. Always buy air chilled. I know it's hard with chicken. I don't eat a lot of chicken because it's so hard to find good quality because the marketing is just so sneaky, but look for air chilled. Look for if you can find a regenerative farm nearby where the chickens are actually outside and enjoying life and eating what they're supposed to eat for most of their life. Great. But yeah, chicken's a tough one. There are a lot of good companies out there like Wild Pastures or White Oak Pastures, or I believe Butcher Box might have chicken, but I think they're mostly beef. But I know that Wild Pastures has good chicken, good quality chicken and beef that you can order. You can get some of those boxes as well. So again, if you're not near a farm that has this good quality stuff, that's okay. You can always order it. There's so many of those companies that will just ship it directly to you, store it in the freezer, and you've got good quality meat at a discounted price, which is great. So that's another thing to keep in mind. With fish, always, always, always get fresh caught from the ocean. Never, ever buy farm-raised salmon, farm-raised cod, or whatever other kind of fish you like to eat. Don't ever go with that stuff. I mean, the conditions are just as gross. If you want to see how farm-raised fish are held before they're killed and sold in stores, just go watch videos on YouTube. I'm sure there's probably a documentary on that as well. But in terms of salmon, did you know that the meat for farm-raised salmon actually comes out gray when they cut it open? They actually have to dye it to make the fish look reddish color, and it actually ends up coming out as like a light pink. So when you go to a store, if you see dark red, that's probably fresh caught salmon. If you see a pink color or a light pink, that's not fresh caught, that's usually farm raised, because they have to dye the gray meat with a red dye to try to make it look like real salmon. And so you're also getting whatever dye they put in there. Who knows how that affects your body. So always get fresh caught fish. Please don't ever buy farm raised. That stuff is so terrible for you, and it's really disgusting that they have to dye the meat because it just looks so unappetizing. But again, you guys, find food that lived the life it was supposed to live. Outside on a pasture with a chicken eating bugs and all that stuff and worms from the ground, not eating a bunch of soy and corn, which is what a lot of these animals are fed to fatten them up so they can sell more meat. And make sure you look for air chilled with chicken. And then oftentimes I'll recommend those gamey meats like even lamb or elk or bison, because it's not as popular. So you're not really going to get a lot of those really horrible farming conditions with those gamier meats like deer and things like that. It's going to probably be a better process in terms of getting the meat because it's not as popular of one like beef or chicken. So just keep that in mind too. And they're also a lot of times higher in protein. Like I know elk has a ton of protein, so does bison. So if you're looking for something that's maybe a little bit cleaner, maybe just try a different source of red meat like bison or something like that. And then as far as eggs, because I get questions about this a lot, if you can find corn-free, soy-free eggs, it should say it on the label, always buy those. 100%. Pasture raised is better than cage free because they get more land to roam. It doesn't mean they're on a pasture, which is really sad, but usually it means they're outdoors. Cage free does not mean they're outdoors. Again, if you watch these documentaries, cage free chickens could literally just be in this giant container out on a farm, but they never see the sunlight. They're overcrowded. They get infections really frequently, and they're just not treated very well. And the meat quality really suffers because of it. So always look for, if you can get pasture raised, that's a step up from cage free. And then look for corn free, soy free, preferably regenerative farm. So if you're someone who lives in Southern California, my friend's sister actually owns this farm. It was rated #1 eggs in the country, but it's called Happy Hens, and it's a hot pink label on the top of the eggs. So if you see a hot pink label, they usually sell them at Whole Foods, and I know they're up in Erewhon in LA. And usually any sort of bougie health store, you're gonna find her eggs there. But they're such good quality. I've been to her farm. Everything's outdoors. The chickens are just roaming free, eating the stuff they're supposed to eat. And if they do need feed because we're in Southern California and there's not enough bugs and worms in the ground, but they make sure that they don't use corn, they don't use soy, they just use different kinds of food that's not going to really mess up the quality of the chicken. So I think I covered everything. If not, I will make a part 2, but hopefully this is really helpful and kind of gets you guys back on the right track with your food. Again, quality is always going to be better than whatever diet you're on. Yes, paleo can help people. Yes, dairy-free and gluten-free can help people, but it's usually the stuff that's tainted in the dairy, in the gluten, that makes people allergic or sensitive to it. It's not the gluten itself. That's why people can go to Europe, they can eat the bread, they're totally fine. You don't have a gluten allergy, you probably have an issue with a lot of the ingredients that are put in it. And so that's why people react so much to dairy and gluten in America. It's usually the stuff that's added to it, like pesticides in the wheat, and then the fact that we use GMO grains and they're not allowed in Europe. That's a whole other topic. And then in terms of dairy, a lot of people in Europe, they drink raw milk, they eat raw cheese, they haven't pasteurized it, they haven't destroyed those proteins, and they don't add fake vegetarian rennet to their cheese. So that's another thing to keep an eye on is if you're buying cheese and it says vegetarian rennet, put it back on the shelf because that's something made in a lab. It's actually been shown to create some inflammation in the gut. So again, if you've got gut issues or if you're someone who's like, oh, I get super bloated when I eat cheese, try getting a raw cheese. Go to Costco, they have some raw cheeses there. Go to Trader Joe's, they have some raw cheeses as well. If you can handle that, don't believe all the hype around raw dairy is dangerous. It can kill you. You can get an infection. That is so incredibly rare that honestly I wouldn't worry about it. Now, obviously, if you're someone who's immunocompromised or you've got some sort of issues with your immune system, I would not recommend raw dairy. I would just look for A2. If you're going to go for pasteurized milk, I would try A2. That's going to have a protein in there that most people can handle versus conventional dairy, which again, horrible conditions. They're fed tons of antibiotics, tons of hormones, pumped full of that stuff. And it just really changes the quality of it. And all that stuff they're pumped full of goes straight into you when you drink it. So again, look at the ingredients, look at how things are processed, how they're made. It really, really is truly important. If you guys have any questions, definitely leave a message down below or feel free to email me. In the show notes, you can find those. And yeah, I will see y'all on the next episode. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up or give me a rating on one of those platforms, whichever platform you're listening on. And thanks so much for listening. And I hope you got a lot of value out of it.